for you for 12 minutes. Come on.
Sorry.
Good evening, everyone. It's Agile with Ukraine, number 23, but in fact it's 22 because 22 was rescheduled for 2 days after. But anyway, we call it 23 with legendary Bob Galen with us. And today we will be talking about Agile coaches. Does it for everyone or not? And we have different thoughts and ideas about it. And at the beginning, as usually, I will start from short introduction about Agile with Ukraine. And tomorrow I'll be here alone without Andriy. He's a little bit not available. Let me share my screen. I'll try to do it really fast. I hope that everything is more or less stable. Sorry, some airplanes just under my hood. And it's not so funny. Um, yeah, that's how we are currently living here in Ukraine. Sometimes jets under your hood, and you cannot plan it in advance. So, yeah, Agile with Ukraine. Um, when work has been started, we've been in connection with Andriy Glushenko. I mean me, Artem Bukovets, and Andriy. I will show you how I look like in normal life before war on conference. Yeah, I'm CEO organizational agile coach at Simple Sense and also have my own courses and beautiful kids and wife. And Andriy is professional Scrum trainer at Scrum.org, certified less practitioner. I'm also certified less coach. So we've decided how can we help Ukraine nowadays because we are not the most promising soldiers, but we do like to educate people and connect great people together. And we want to connect people who want to learn something and people who have a lot of experience and insights to share. And we've started doing these meetups called Agile with Ukraine, inviting some great people as Bob today and such a great guests as Sergey, Alona, Michael, and others in this room today. So the most frequently asked question from me being here in Ukraine all these days in Kiev is how are you there in Ukraine? And I've prepared some data for you. So during the first 90 days, from 24th of February till 24th of May, uh, we had 390 air alarms just in Kiev. 390 air alarms in 90 days. And total time of alarm sound in the air is kind of 19 full days, like meaning 17 multiplied by 24 hours. And it's not the most pleasant sound, and Alona and Sergey can approve it. And it was only 6 days without attacks and their alarms in Kiev. And you can see these dates. I don't know why maybe these dates was a vacation for their soldiers, but and today was only 2. So that's how things are going. But what I can add to that humans are very, very adaptive creatures. And I believe that if 3 weeks or 3 months ago I will hear the airplanes under my hood, my reactions will be a bit different than it was 1 minute ago. Yeah, I still feel some stress, of course. I'm a bit scared, maybe, but we somehow adapted to this temporarily way of living. And why we are doing these events and this initiative? Because we want to collect money to help our army and our nation, our people to survive and win in this war. And also because we want to raise awareness what's going on here. Because the first months, every newspaper, every TV show, I believe, were talking about what's going on in Ukraine. And now they're discussing like Will Smith slaps Chris Rock during Oscar and some other very, very important events around the globe. So we want to raise awareness also. And we want to explain that it's not only about soldiers fighting with soldiers, as they said, like they're destroying military objects, but they're also destroying some civilian objects, big shopping malls, business centers with offices inside, with open spaces, stadiums, libraries, schools, uh, train stations. Mariupol is fully ruined as a city. It was a very nice city, and this building were survived after World War II, but it could not survive after Russian brothers and sisters come to help us and support our nation. Yeah, thank you for because my hand is a bit busy with mouse and keyboard. And yeah, maybe you have heard about Bucha and Irpin, and yeah, some people now have bigger windows and doors in their buildings than it was before, and also some buildings are totally ruined. Also, they are fighting with open air parks in which previous winter, this January, by the way, I've been playing with my kids, and we were visiting Santa Claus residence, and what they did to it, they just like change it to more Russian style of landscapes for our kids, so we can also feel empathy towards our big brothers. And yeah, the kids are growing in these days, and it's hard for us, but even kids trying to contribute somehow, and they are drawing nice pictures. And it's another project I'm organized with my wife called UA Kids Today. You can subscribe on Instagram and see different drawings by kids from Ukraine. But we are such a nation which are not crying every day and begging for support and for, and I don't know, for mercy. Uh, we are trying to help our own as we can, and you can see people on the streets of Irpin cleaning up the streets, and there were something to clean up after Russian army was pushed out from this territory. So there's the landscape of small, nice city 5 kilometers from Kiev. And our software developers, they are just doing what they used to do. So they are coding and deploying something to production, sitting in shelters, you know. And we will be doing it as long as we can to do, because we were given some promises, some commitments. So we are working, and we want to live as it was before. Yeah, because this nation, as we understood, is correspond to most Scrum values as a courage. Yeah, definitely is a Photoshop. But anyway, our farmers were pulling military technique from Russian army at nights using tractors and other stuff. You know, we have a great focus now on helping each other and helping our army. So everyone do whatever they can to support. We have a huge respect to this army and to each other nowadays because we're united as much as we possibly can be united together, comparing to how it was 5-7 years ago, especially. And we have openness to share whatever you have and to try whatever is possible. And yeah, we have a great commitment towards our win in this war. So everyone doing whatever they can. The kids trying to sell something to collect money. People doing, as it previously was named, cocktail Molotov, but now we call it smoothie Bandera smoothie. Yes, farmers are stealing tanks, and people are trying to stop military technique with just the flags and empty hands. And war is not so far from Europe, and we are fighting not only for Ukraine, we are fighting for freedom, we are fighting for mindset of democracy, of liberty, of opportunity to live normal life and decide by your own. So we are just, I don't know, 1,000 kilometers from Germany, France, and other countries who are still deciding should they send a heavy weapon to Ukraine or not. And of course, it will be their decisions, but we are paying quite a high price for this freedom and democracy. And to help our army, we are collaborating with Uniters Foundations. Foundation started from 2014 after the first conflict on Donbass in Crimea had been started, organized by Ukrainians. And they are quite good from the agile metrics, so to say, perspective, because they've delivered the first cargo next day after war have been started. This time full-scale war means 26th of February or 25th of February, first cars was already here with military and medical support and other kind of support they can buy in Poland and send here. And also, we don't have the latest update about metrics, but during the first 2 months, they've delivered 3,000 tons of support and more than 132 tiers, long tiers. And as an Agile with Ukraine, we raised already all around $68,000 for them and Colo Ukraine. It's another initiative, another foundation who are working actively now for Ukrainians. I will share links how you can donate later, and I hope that you can also add something. It's already not the first day. I know that many people give already some big piece of budgets, but our people still need some support, and financial support is the best what we can offer nowadays. I will share links how can you do it via PayPal and Rzutka.pl. It's Polish service how you can do it. And that's it from my side, and I will give a microphone to Bob. Thank you so much that you joined our initiative. You help us with posting about us and speaking this evening, European evening and US morning with us. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. I hope everyone can hear me. Let me share my screen. As you were talking, Artem, I was almost getting emotional. And not that that was your intention, but it's just my heart is with the Ukrainian people. I think about just things that are going on in the world. We're having challenges here in the States, and you're having challenges ongoing. So uh, my heart is just with you for what it's worth, and my support is with you. I wanted to talk about. Now I feel like this doesn't even matter. so, but I am going to try to talk about coaching a little bit. So it's a tough act to follow. It's like Ukraine, and then I'm going to talk about freaking agile coaching. But we all need to do our part. So I want to. I have this. I've recently released a book called Extraordinarily Badass Agile Coaching. If anyone's offended by that word, I apologize now. Uh, so, um, but I released a book, and this happens to me a lot, probably because I'm older. That's one reason. Is that once I code freeze something, like once I published the book, and it was frozen, you can't really change it once you put it on Amazon, etc. And I was like, damn it, I should have emphasized this, or damn it, there were some things I wanted to talk about or amplify that I didn't do, and that happens in code, and it happens in writing as well. So one of the things that I sort of regretted is the title almost implies that the book is for agile coaching and coaches, if that makes sense. And in hindsight, I was like, it really it's not just for agile coaches. Uh, I really want I think coaching skills or agile coaching skills are relevant for any role. There's roles that I think I wish more people, like leaders, managers, directors, vice president. I wish more leaders would have coaching skills. I see so many leaders who have terrible or non-existent coaching skills when it comes to coaching people who report to them. Product owners, I think, could benefit from coaching or communication skills or coaching skills. And so the point here is everyone is or can be an agile coach. What I want you all to do is I want you to tease apart the title or the org chart or what role you play from the competencies if, and the skills of coaching. Everyone with me? So, and that's what I want to talk about. I don't care what your roles are. Think about the competencies that we talk about and explore here, the competencies of coaching. And I would argue that they can be applicable to any role. Team member, we're going to do a role play later, a little game, not a game, but an example. And it's a team coach example where team members, I think, should coach each other. Or there's an opportunity for team members to have skills to coach each other. So that's the why behind the title. I'm not trying to create it's not a gamey title. I literally think if you tease that apart, the skills are there. So I'm not going to talk about me. I want to talk about a couple things. Just to introduce it, we're going to talk about the Agile Coaching Growth Wheel, which is a metaphor or a model or a framework, a lightweight framework. We're going to talk about the Agile or the coaching mindset, which is really relevant for any role. We're going to talk about coaching conversations. What are the elements of a coaching conversation? And then we're going to do a bit of practice. I was thinking of doing it in breakout rooms, but we're probably going to just do it together and then talk about it. And then we'll close. So this is what I meant. I want you to think of, coaching, the skills of coaching as applicable to coaches, scrum masters, RTEs, project managers, managers, directors, everyone. Think of it broadly. Don't get triggered. Oh, this doesn't matter to me. I think it does. And I think it'll make you more excellent in your role if you can communicate. So for example, the ability to articulate and communicate and challenge each other well, to have crucial conversations, is a coaching activity to me. And that can benefit everyone. So a little bit of history on the book. I'm going to skip around slides, and I'll make the PDF available to you, Artem, if I haven't already.
Okay, thank you.
So this is a little bit of background on the book. It was I had some help, and it was the first book I've ever written. I've written a few books, and it was the first one I wrote with co-conspirators. And I actually invited my daughter. My daughter wrote a chapter. And she was scared to death because her dad, she was like contributing a chapter to her dad's book, and I twisted her arm, and she did a wonderful job. And I'm proud of how she contributed. She has a social work background, and she talked about, there's a chapter that focuses on diversity and inclusion as something that's important to coaching, like thinking about diversity when we're coaching, and she did a great job of that. There's just real quickly, there's a historical metaphor or framework before the Agile Coaching Growth Wheel called the Agile Coaching Competency Framework. Some people call it the X-Wing model. If you're a Star Trek or a Star Wars, I'm sorry, everyone, I just offended people. If you're a Star Wars, I know, Aliona, I just offended the world. So you have to choose one. I actually like both. So if you're a Star Wars fan, there's this X-Wing model, and there's stances that it talks about. There's 4 primary stances. The way I interpret it, or the way I think of it, is there's a teaching stance, there's a mentoring stance, there's a facilitation stance, and there's a professional coaching stance. These 3 are relatively self-evident. Teaching and mentoring, to me, are relatively self-evident. Facilitation is relatively self-evident. The one that I think a lot of people get confused about is professional coaching. What that means, that's ICF, International Coaching Federation, has a definition for coaching. The way I'll characterize it is it's asking questions. So part of the professional coaching stance is you don't tell the client what to do. They have to discover it for themselves, and you ask them powerful. If you've ever heard the term powerful questions, you ask them questions. It's almost like you're not allowed to tell the client what to do. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's the client has to discover that stuff. So that's one of the hallmarks of professional coaching. At the bottom here are some masteries, either technical for team coaches, transformation for change, enterprise coaches, business mastery for maybe product level coaches. And then at the top is every Agile coach should understand how to spell Agile and Lean, I guess. So you should have some sort of Agile Lean practitioner competencies. But this is a baseline. This is Agile, the context, the primary context. And then as a coach, you oscillate through these stances depending on the client's needs. I'm going to use the term client to represent who we're coaching. So if I'm a Scrum Master and I'm coaching a team, then the team is the client. If I'm a Agile coach and I'm coaching a leader, then the leader is the client. So the client could be a team, a group, an individual, a small set of individuals. It could be another coach. Whoever I'm coaching is the client, and we hold the client. So professional coaching holds the client as smart, and we ask them questions and help them discover their own way. So that's a little background in frameworks and things. And anyone stop me, it's such a small group, stop me with questions. The Agile Coaching Growth Wheel has emerged in the community in the last few years. And I think of it as replacing, it's not the intention, but it's replacing the X-Wing. It wasn't created to do that. It was created by a bunch of coaches at retreats, and they were trying to think of what's missing or how to augment the current framework. But in my mind, it really is essentially replacing that or overlaying the X-Wing framework. It has the notion of stances. It has the notion of competencies. It includes professional coaching, just like the X-Wing model did. and it's developed by Practicing Coaching. There's a link here to it. This is the open source link. But the Scrum Alliance is also normalizing to this. So you can actually find a version. There's a working group at the Scrum Alliance who's developing a view of the wheel. And hopefully at some point, the Scrum Alliance coaching certifications will align that way. They haven't yet. And then there's a public version of it. And this is that website for that. This is a little history. I'm not going to go into it. But what I do want to do is walk around the wheel and explain it and use it as a way of talking about coaching. One of the reasons I resonate so nicely with the wheel is the fact that it has self-mastery at the center, and it amplifies that. And it's the hub. I don't know if you've ever seen an Agile coach, probably not in the Ukraine or in Europe, but there's coaches in the United States, and they coach and tell people what to do, or they provide advice, but then they don't practice the advice. So let me give you an example. The coach tells the client, well, you have excessive whip. Does that make sense, Sergey? You have whip. You need to reduce your whip. So they're talking to a Scrum team, and they're like, you have too much work in progress. You need to reduce your whip. But then you look at the coach, and they have like 22 things in flight. So that's a coach who is talking about coaching, but not, so they're not walking their talk, if that makes sense. And it really bugs me when coaches, and it actually, forget if it bugs me. Can you imagine being a client and a coach is telling you to do something? Like you had a coach who weighed 500 pounds and they were trying to coach you for weight loss. It would be really hard, and they're giving you all this advice, but they're not practicing what they preach. And it really undermines the coaching. And one of the things, whether you're aware of it or not, the clients actually, they not only look at your words, but they look at how you're showing up. They look at how you are. So the wheel focuses a lot on self-mastery. Things like your ethics. Are you self-aware? Are you emotionally intelligent? Learning. We talk about being continuously learning. Is the coach a continuous learner without being told? Is the coach curious? Right, that's part of it. Is the coach mindful of their own weaknesses, of their own strengths? Are they walking in? Or are they clueless? Or do they care about it at least? Are they aware of it, and do they care? Are they doing something about it over time? Are they service oriented? Meaning, do they have the view that they're serving the client? Or is it about the coach? Is it about Agile, right? It shouldn't be about Agile. It should be about serving the client, whoever the client is, using Agile as a backdrop. Are they humble? I want any coach to, one test of self-mastery is ask yourself, if you're a coach, and we're all coaches, given the premise of this talk, we're almost all coaches. Do you have a coach? And are you being, so do you have a coach, and are you coaching? And do you have a mentor, and are you mentoring? Everyone would like, are you doing it both ways? Are you being mentored, and are you mentoring, and are you being coached? Are you coachable? Do you have the humility to be coachable? I can't tell you how many coaches I encounter. It's like, yeah, I love coaching. I'm like, do you have a coach? No, I don't need a coach. I'm Bob Galen. And for the record, I have a coach, right? I have multiple coaches. Look at me. I need coaching. I need coaching in my sense of humor. I have a sense of humor coach. It's not working out really well, but I have the coach for it. Am I coachable? And what's my presence like? How am I showing up? Do I show up with a client? Am I looking at my watch? Am I looking at my computer? Am I worrying about my next 5 meetings? Or am I fully present with Evgeny? And am I listening to him intently? Right? And is it all about, does Evgeny feel like I am fully present for him? He is the client. And I'm sure there's nothing else that's more important right now in this moment. How do I show up? So that's the self-mastery part. And it's incredible. And everything is based on that. So you could be a wonderful professional coach, but you have to get to your core first. So that's the core.
May I ask you a short question?
Sure.
Regarding self-mastery, I believe that I've faced with this framework 3-4 years ago. meeting with Mark Burrows as one of the
Mark Summers.
Mark Summers is one of the authors for the
Yes.
first version, but self-mastery is something like lately added, yeah? So it wasn't
Yeah.
there from the beginning.
It wasn't there from the beginning. It was sort of lately there, Artem, but it wasn't really expanded the way we're expanding it now.
Yeah, it's a great addition,
It's
I believe.
I think so. It's sort of that view of leaders. If you want to be a great leader, you be a great follower. Anyone ever hear that? Great leaders are also great followers, and leadership is an inside-out job. It's not an outside-in job. And it's that same philosophy for coaching, right? Trying to bring it inside inside out as a coach. Don't be lazy about the inside and don't just focus on the outside would be another way of saying it. Yeah, to be honest, I think I've amplified that. I think Mark has amplified that in the working groups, and other people have really seen that. The Coaching Federation amplifies that as well. Good catch. The evolution is so those coaching groups that you were a part of, Artem, or however you were, Mark and that he didn't sponsor it, he facilitated it, but the wheel grew out of those working groups over a number of years.
Yeah, awesome.
Another thing the wheel does that I really like is it extended the stances a little bit. So what it did was it took mentoring and teaching and put it together into guided learning. So it aggregated mentoring and teaching into guided learning. And then what it did is it added 2 stances, if that makes sense to everyone. It added advising and it added leading. And I think leading connects to they all connect to self-mastery, but leading, I think, strongly connects to self-mastery. Let's talk about advising. Another pet peeve of mine, I don't know if you've worked with some Agile coaches, they will never provide advice to the client. So they'll ask questions, and I've seen coaches do this hundreds of times, particularly when they're coaching leaders, executives and things, and they're coaching up, and the leader, and they say, well, what methodology should we use? And the answer is, well, what methodology do you think you should use? And it's, but I don't know. What methodology should we use? Well, what methodology do you think you should use? What have your children used at school? What do you think might be applicable? And so everyone notice what I'm asking questions. I'm asking powerful questions. The client in this case needs what? Advice. Maybe not to be told what to do. They need to make the decision, but they're looking for they're looking for consulting advice. And a lot of coaches won't go there. They're like, well, we're not allowed to do that, right? The X-Wing doesn't allow us, I'm kidding a little bit, the X-Wing doesn't allow us to do it. There is no stance. The wheel gives us permission to do that. Now, you don't want to, I'm not saying that we provide 100% of the time advice. That would do the client a disservice, because then we would be owning the decisions in the client. But occasionally, if the client is desperately looking for advice, the wheel is giving you permission to say, you know what, maybe that's the stance that you need to serve the client now with some options, with some advice, and collaborate. This is what you've seen. This is share your experience. There was a hand up. Arthur, I think, had one. Maybe I missed it. Did anyone have a?
Yeah, but I just wanted, to add, it's like in facilitation, you get to like have a group which are able to, produce the outcome. Yeah. So it's like the client also.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the things I think of in coaching, we're talking about it a little bit later, is the notion of dancing. There are coaches that get stuck in one stance. If you've ever heard, what are some of the euphemisms? Like if the only tool you have is a hammer, then everything looks like a nail. So you have one tool. The point of the wheel is, as a coach, to have multiple skills, to develop it over time, so that you can dance with your client depending on their needs. Everyone with me? The client may need teaching, but then I may need to switch to facilitation. And then I may need to switch to consulting. And then I switch to professional coaching and ask questions to see, hey, how was that? So what I've done is I've danced across a few stances in service to my client's agenda. But if the only tool I have is professional coaching, I may not be in service to my client or as effective as I could be. And that's what the wheel is actually is trying to give us to become a more well-rounded coach. The other thing then is leading. The other additional stance is leading, which says sometimes the coach is the leader of the initiative. Sometimes the coach needs to step out of being in the background and be in the foreground. Maybe as a change agent. Maybe he's an evangelist. Everyone understand what I'm saying? Sometimes the coach may need to move from facilitation to being in front of it, being an inspiration, walking their talk, role modeling. Everyone, role model, being a role model for showing the organization what it looks like. Showing the organization what it looks like. There's telling and then there's showing. And that leading stance can be very effective. I found the leading stance to be my most powerful coaching stance, and it goes with self-mastery. Clients they don't necessarily look at what I say first, they look at what I do. Am I showing up with courage, Artem? Do you know what I'm saying, right? The Scrum values say courage. Am I actually showing up with courage or am I showing up with fear? If I show up with fear and don't, then no matter what the Scrum values, I'm not showing up with those values. So, and I'm not showing the client how to articulate those values. So the leadership stance is part of that. So I think of it as role modeling. So a little bit of improved competencies or well-roundedness. And then there's the Agile Lean Practitioner serving and transforming. And that aligns very much with the X-Wing. There's not much of an extension there, a little bit of an extension in transforming, being a change agent, an organizational change agent. The other thing that I think the wheel does a great job of that the X-Wing never did is the wheel talks about levels of competency. And it provides guidance around 5 levels of competency. So you can look at yourself and say, from a professional coaching perspective, where am I? Oh, I'm a beginner. And from a facilitation perspective, where am I? Oh, I'm a practitioner. It provides words and some examples of what the skill would look like at that level, so that when you assess yourself as a coach against the wheel, you can get a sense for where am I inexperienced and where am I more experienced by providing those competency levels. And I find that that's incredibly useful for coaches, particularly if they want to get into continuous improvement. Gives you a sense. It's not a grading system. It's not an evaluation. It's not a salary. It's not a performance evaluation. It's none of these competency levels are for you to do a personal assessment. It's a private assessment. If you want to grow yourself, where am I and where would I like to grow and how would I grow? I'm going to skip over this. This is another sort of stance model that I found useful that I use. And you all can look at that later. I actually plan my coaching engagements using this in my head when I'm thinking of the coaching conversation I'm going to have. So I prepare. I'll talk about it when I talk about the coaching arc a little bit later. I just want to stop here, and then I'll stop before mindset. Mark Summers and I, we partnered with the comparative agility. And they have something called a personal improvement assessment that is not shared data. So it's free. So they have a platform that provides a free assessment for Scrum Masters, for product owners, and Mark and I added an Agile coaching assessment to that tool. And there's a link there that any of you can go there and do a personal, private assessment of where you're at from a coaching competency perspective based on the wheel. And we just put that out there. We felt it was a complement to the book we were working on and to the wheel work that was going on in the community. The Scrum Alliance also has an assessment, a spreadsheet assessment tool on the Scrum Alliance site. I'm biased. I think this one is easier to use. It also provides a dashboard for continuous improvement. So it's just a freebie. I'm just letting you be aware of it. Any questions on the wheel? I just wanted to give you a light touch on coaching wheel. Any reactions or questions? Like it, dislike it, like the additional stances?
Yeah, it's awesome. I can share my experience because I
Yeah,
was using it for a few years with my mentee people when I was agile coach for a group of Scrum Masters, and it really helps to find the focus, to highlight some areas, and not trying to visit 10 workshops per month, learn everything which is available for you, and then practice nothing. So you can take one area and practice, grow in this area, and then switch to another one.
Yeah,
I do a lot of pro bono coaching, or I do a reasonable amount of pro bono coaching, Artem, and I leverage that in my coaching just as a place to help me ground, like how do I focus on the partnership with my clients, and I ask them to do that. And I find it to be quite useful at Scrum Master level, at a coaching level, etc. Artur, did you come off mute?
but it's also like great for me. Like we used such approach, and it's interesting when your coachee, how to say it in English, assessed himself, and later he like reassessed himself, and his like marks got like being lower, after the
Yep.
actual education coaching. So in like learned new stuff, and understood that he like have lots of stuff to learn.
Absolutely. Oh, I wanted to mention something. Artur, you inspired me a little bit. It's not just about learning, it's what to ignore. So not what to unlearn, but so I'll be vulnerable, a little bit vulnerable. I don't like facilitation. So I know that sounds weird. I'm an Agile coach. I've been doing Agile coaching for 20 years. I can facilitate. I have good tools. I have good tools and techniques to facilitate. I'm not a bad facilitator. I just don't like it. And because I don't like it, I don't want to develop it anymore. Right? So it's okay for me to starve my facilitation. So I'm a practitioner, and I'm never going to want to be more than a practitioner in facilitation. Everyone understand what I'm saying? So the wheel is not just about growth, it's also about self-awareness. Where are your strengths? Where's your passion? and it could identify, hey, it's okay to starve this area and then to grow. So for me, one of the areas I've been growing is professional coaching. That's an area where I've been growing, and I continue to grow in that area. Leadership is an area where I really focus. Part of it's not just the learning, part of it, I'm good at it. I have opportunities with clients, but I'm passionate in those areas. So when you're doing your wheel, it's not just about, I feel bad about myself. Look, I don't have any strength here. Don't look at it that way. It's a growth model, but it's also a sort of self-awareness model. You don't have to grow everywhere. I actually think it's impossible to become like this well-rounded super coach. I don't know if the world needs well-rounded super coaches. So it needs us to just grow. We're human and grow. So think about it from both of those perspectives. Anything else? Mindset. I want to talk about mindset a little bit. This is important. Again, forget the wheel, but I think most individuals, some of these mindset elements would be helpful in how we show up at work, virtually, in person, it doesn't matter what, regardless of our role. So let's talk about one. First prime directive, do no harm. Do no harm, right? Assume positive intent. I wish I could make you all tattoo some things on your forearm to remember this session. And one of the things would be whoever you're dealing with, maybe outside of the Ukraine. So don't assume positive intent for everyone in the Ukraine, right? There's some malicious intent, but assume positive intent. Sometimes we assume people are morons, or they're doing this to just be a jerk, and they may be, but then we bring that baggage and we bring that bias to play. When I coach leaders, I've had some really terrible leaders in my career, and I have to be careful that I don't bring that historical baggage in to future leaders. Does that make sense to everyone? Right? I can bring that in and I can project that on other leaders. And I assume positive intent means I drop that. So drop that. Hold your clients as capable. Don't look down your nose at your clients. That's not agile. If any of you have ever said that's not agile to anyone ever say that's not agile, right? Don't ever do that again, right? Never do. That's looking down your nose at, I'm kidding, but hold your clients respectfully. Hold them, they can discover their way. Have the courage to be patient. So again, prime directives of the coaching mindset. Keep it in the back of your mind. The second thing is, I emphasized it earlier, is self-mastery. Agile coach or coaching is an inside-out job. And your coaching, the impact that you make to others is directly proportional to how you're showing up to them, because they're paying attention to how you show up, not what you say. Words are great, actions are better. It's how you role model. So take control of your self-mastery. It doesn't mean you have to be perfect, but you have to be aware of it, right? The part that you play. I used to blame, if someone wasn't agile, right? I was coaching a leader, and if they didn't get it, I would put all of the impetus on them. I would say, oh, they must be pointy-headed. They must be waterfall. They're not getting, I'm giving them this beautiful prize and they're not taking it, right? So it's their problem. What I've realized as a coach, it's my mindset is affecting their receptivity to my coaching. Everyone, if I have the mindset that they are a pointy-headed leader and I'm coaching them, guess what? They feel that. The universe responds in kind. If I meet them with assumed positive intent and curiosity, guess what happens? I get a better coaching outcome from them. I want you all to try it. Try it. How we show up, our mindset matters. Not our agile mindset, our mindset to the client. So that's inside out, really is a difference. Have you ever met someone and said, I want them to be here? Please be honest, right? I'm meeting your coachings. I'm not meeting them where they are. I want you to be here. You may not even say it to them, but why can't I get you here as soon as possible? It's not about where you want someone to be. Meet people where they are. Imagine how disrespectful, right? I want Semyon to have a PhD in accounting, right? I meet him there. I don't know if Semyon, I don't know if you have the PhD in accounting or not, but I'm meeting him where I want him to be, as opposed to where he is, and I don't know where he is. But that's the point. It's not about us. It's about serving the client. So how do we show up that way? So empathy, meet people where they are. Another thing is empathy. I wish more coaches walked in the shoes of their clients before they coach them. Does that make sense? So if I'm a manager having one-on-ones with developers, right? What would walking in the shoes like? Follow them around. Understand how hard it is for them to modify the code base. You don't have to code with them necessarily 8 hours a day, but look at the world through their eyes. Everyone with me? Or Alona, if you're coaching a leader, follow them around. Look at the pressure they're under. They almost got fired yesterday. Their boss said, I want more stuff from your team, otherwise you're fired. It's not an excuse, but let's look at the world through their eyes before we coach them. Can you imagine how effective that would be if we built empathy? Walk in someone's shoes. And I literally mean turn around. Not, oh, I know how they feel. No, you don't. Assume that you don't know and be curious and actually walk into the shoes. Walk in their shoes. There was actually a guy I know, a coach in Chicago, and he took this challenge and he followed leaders around for a few weeks, not every minute, but he went to meetings with them. And he came back to me and he said, Bob, I never understood the challenges that the leaders I was coaching were in this context. And he said, understanding where they're coming from made my coaching that much more effective, because I met them where they were and I understood, and then we could work together. Because empathy creates partnership. Now we're understanding together. I talked about dropping our baggage. There's too much baggage and bias in the world. You're always going to have some, but try to clean it up before you coach. So that's another metaphor. And then probably the most important one is walk your talk. Not talk your walk, walk your talk. And in fact, walk, but don't talk. Might be a variation on this. Because behavior trumps talking. Everyone with me? My behavior, I can say I'm an agile leader. That doesn't mean anything. I can say I'm an Agile coach. That doesn't mean anything. I can say that I'm an enterprise Agile coach. That doesn't mean anything. How do I behave? How do I show up? How do I greet the client? How am I showing up? How am I dancing between stances, or do I have one tool in my toolbox? Am I self-aware that I'm an obnoxious old man or not? Whatever. How am I showing up? I'm going to skip that one. Any reactions to mindset? Can you see where that's important no matter what your role is? Yes, no, maybe?
Yes.
Important. Because at a team level, I don't care what your roles are. Imagine you're meeting your boss that way. Go ahead.
Yeah, totally agree. So it's basics, yeah. So if you don't understand the mindset, how you like will be able to teach or to show it for somebody.
You know what, Artur? I agree with you, but I triggered on when you said the basics. I think it's basic, but what I find, and again, I'm not in Europe, so I can't. But in my context, yes, I agree. It's the basics, but I would argue that 90% of the people don't show up that way, if that makes sense. And I'm probably being kind, right? So yes, it's basic behavior, but why the hell aren't we doing it? so yeah, absolutely. And there's that
basic,
reminder.
I mean, don't get me wrong, it's basic for coach, yeah. But when we talk about changes on team level or whatever level, yeah, we try to change the mindset, and it's the toughest job ever, I think.
Absolutely, I would agree. Any other reactions to mindset?
I have a stupid one. Hi, I'm Alona, and I'm usually expressing stupid reactions and stupid questions. So it really struck some chord in me of what you were saying about the empathy and filling in someone's shoes just for a second. But have you ever had a situation where, you are becoming too empathetic and you get to the level of this person who is really, really stumbled, as in like, oh my, like this is crap, this is crap, this is crap, and you feel him so much, and you are at the same loss as he is, and you sort of lose whatever.
And then you shift your title to the Agile Delivery Manager, yeah?
Exactly. There is a notion, Aliona, and I've written about this in some blog posts, and you can, if you email me, or you can look on my website, or since I have 2 blogs that I do, but there's Jerry Weinberg is an author, and he talked about this notion of pickling, and it's the pickle. So a pickle is in brine, and cucumbers are in brine, and they become pickled. And he said, what was it? There's the notion of the Peter Pickle principle, and the pickle principle is cucumbers become pickled before brine becomes cucumbered. And so I think in general, as a coach, it's more than the empathy. As a coach, we have to be sensitive to, have we gotten too close to the client? Have we been assimilated by the environment, if you will? In your example, it's, have I gotten too close to the person, whereas I can't coach? But it could be the organization. You could have been assimilated by the culture, and you've lost your independent perspective as a coach. Does that make sense? So as coaches, there's no fix for it. There's like an awareness. Be aware of how pickled are you. In that particular case, if you sense that, maybe it's time to ask someone else to coach them, or maybe it's time to ask to not coach them, or to even self-identify that in some way, if that makes sense, right? But you lose the effectiveness of your coaching when you've gotten drawn in, I think. And another way, internal coaches. There's a notion of being an internal to the company coach versus an external, a consulting coach. I think internal coaches can get pickled. Now just be aware of it and watch for it, and then try to sort of change things up as a defense mechanism. But a lot of people get picked. It's a common practice that you want to be self-aware of.
Add another line to the wrist tattoo, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, your full hands will be in different tattoos. Yeah, really resonate with what I feel, because when you ask what are the ideas about this mindset and approach part, I want to say that it's hard to manage yourself to keep with all these parameters when you are inside the organization for quite long.
Absolutely. And some people, there's tactical things you can move from group to group, right? There's but what I found is being in an organization, I'm not trying to get anyone to quit their job, but being in an organization for a long time as a coach, there's almost a natural pickling effect. You get assimilated into the culture, and you don't see. You lose that. It's not that it's necessarily bad. You're not becoming a bad coach, but you're losing your ability to determine what's going on. Like your view of the system changes. Your ability to independently view the system changes.
It's like you have some additional filters, lenses in your glasses. So you have blind spots, and something becomes for you totally new normal. And they ask like, "Can you highlight something for me? Explain, show?" And you say like, "No, it was always been like this here." So yeah,
exactly. And that's one of the indicators of it. It's always been this way. Or we've tried that and it's never, so some language, we tried that and it didn't work and it never will work. You can see patterns of languages.
Yeah, some dangerous beliefs which are blocking you from beliefs that they can do something differently, beliefs that it's everything okay with them and they can try all these things that you need to help people, and you become one of them, like resisting the change. Or
and it's subtle, so I don't want it to paint it negatively. It's we all go through it, right? But it's just it's that awareness it's sensitizing you to self-awareness. Artur.
Yeah, like such picture came into my mind, like Pirates of the Caribbean, when Davy Jones like became a part of the ship, So when you enter as like organization or system, like in a change agent role, like don't become a part of a ship.
One of the things I would recommend to all of you, if you're interested, if you take that assessment, the PI assessment in the consulting, remember the advisory stance. Mark and I put in some resources as part of the learning advice. And one of them, if you're ever interested in like getting better at providing advice, depending on your role, Jerry Weinberg has 2 books, Secrets of Consulting and More Secrets of Consulting. And this comes from, and it's like a patterns book, like, small little useful patterns and metaphors that I found really useful. I would highly recommend it. And you could read it over time, over years, but the wisdom in there is really valuable for consultants. I think for anyone, employees, how to give advice, how to influence others, how to navigate their career, but also for coaches, particularly in the advisory stance. All right, let's move on to coaching conversations. This is just a couple slides, if I recall. I have this notion of an arc. I like a chess metaphor for it. So I want you to think about a coaching conversation. It's just like I don't want it to be too contrived. I want you to just think about coaching conversations have a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? It's just beginning, middle, end. Opening moves, middle game, and end game. And when you're thinking about the conversations before, during, and after, think about what stances, like remember that 9-quadrant thing that I said I use that for my coaching? Very often I think about, okay, I have a coaching conversation coming up with Michael Wolin. All right, so how am I going to enter? What is my opening moves? My opening move is going to be coaching stance. Everyone with me? Coaching stance is questions. So I'll probably ask Michael, how you doing, Michael? I notice you have a chair in the background. It's beige or blonde. Why is that? Why is it not red? So I'm showing some curiosity. Why are we here? What agenda? What would be your coaching agenda, Michael? I ask him, then I shut up and listen. So I'm asking some curious questions. That's coaching stance. That's a really nice way to enter opening moves. Everyone with me? If I notice that Michael's hair goes up when I talk about the chair, I mean, it stands on end. And I'm like, oh my God, I've talked, maybe that's his, you know, his grandfather's chair that was handed down from pioneer days. And I've just made fun of it or something like that, right? It's like, I've detected that there's a sensitivity. So what I'm saying is I'm asking questions, but I'm not just listening to his answers. I'm listening to his body language. I'm listening to the emotional field. And then I might switch depending. I'm not going to ask 1,000 questions. I might say, oh, your agenda is you want to know more about story points, Michael. Yeah, I'd really like you to help me understand, you know, what are the nuances of story points? Great. Then I might switch into what stance? Anyone? I might switch into mentoring stance, or I might switch into teaching stance. So opening moves, it's very safe to ask a few questions. Then I might dance into teaching or mentoring. Then I might find, you know what? Maybe I need to show him, maybe role modeling. Maybe I'll role model with a story of how I messed up with story points and how I came to Fibonacci as being better than some other method. So now I'm not teaching or mentoring, I'm sort of advising, or I may be leading or role modeling something, and I switch to that. So I'm in the middle game. And then the end game, I close the coaching session. I might go back to professional coaching stance. Michael, did we achieve the agenda? Do you have any other questions that we want to explore later, maybe in another coaching session? Hey, Michael, how did I do? How could I improve as a coach? What could I do the next time that would be better serve you? Okay, I got that. Everyone with me. So did you see the arc that I'm talking about here? I'm opening moves, middle game, and end game in a coaching conversation, and it's guiding my stances, my application of the stances. If anyone's ever heard of Cynefin, anyone ever heard of the Cynefin model? It's when I say dance between stances, think in terms of sense and respond. You with me? Sense. I think coaches, we need to have our radar up. I want you as a coach to have your radar up and be sensing and not just sensing, well, that looked like ears, your radar up. So I'm getting better. And you're sensing and responding, not just the words, but even virtually. I'm literally looking at your faces. Artem is, I mean, he's smiling and I'm connecting. If he's chewing, Michael's chewing gum, and I'm wondering what flavor it is, etc. So I'm paying attention. I'm sensing and responding, and that's part of my switch. That's part of my switch is I'm listening to the emotional ORSC. So professional coaching would say, listen to the emotional field. Listen to all, it's active listening. Listening to the emotional field is part of that sense and respond. So it's see how one of the secrets of sort of powerful questions that people miss is it's not just asking the questions, it's how effectively you listen, right? Asking the questions is only half of it. The active listening, the emotional field listening, the sense and respond. And someone, I think Artem said this earlier, coach, he didn't say it this way, but coaching is hard. There's all these things to worry about. I'm paraphrasing. You have to think about this and you have to think about, yes, and it even gets worse. You have to think about more things. You have to be thinking about radar, and you have to be thinking about sense and respond, and you have to think about the client's agenda. And how do we navigate the arc of that conversation? I'm not trying to intimidate you. It's an active, coaching is an active process where we're sensing and responding. One of the problems with powerful questions is if you've ever studied them, is there's so many. There's actually a book on Amazon whose sole point the book is a billion powerful questions. And it's probably like 100 pages of different questions. And I've seen coaches that freeze. It's like, oh, they're thinking, which question should I pick? Which question? and the client is waiting for the next question, and the coach is going through their dictionary. So don't do that. So it's not that they're bad, but I want to offer you 7 simple questions that I want you to put in your toolbox, and just 7. I found them incredibly useful as a starting point. One is, what's on your mind? Opening moves. You with me? Wonderful opening moves question. Wonderful opening moves. You can use it elsewhere. but clearly in opening moves. And what else? You can use that anywhere. Opening moves, middle game, end game. Michael, what's your action? What action are you going to take after this coaching session? And what else? Or anything else? Let it land. Okay. What's the real challenge for you here? That's sort of a variation of the 5 whys. Everyone with me? The 5. So what's the real, you can ask that multiple times. What's the real challenge? I was actually attending a session a few weeks ago. It was a coaching training session. For me, I was going to coaching class, and the facilitator said, "Why are you here? Why are you attending this class?" And then she said, "Why are you really here?" Jot down the answer. And then she said, "Why are you really, really here?" And then my head was going to explode. And she's like, "And then why are you really, really, really here?" But guess what? My answers were different. As I drilled into it, I was scratching the surface and I drilled into it, which is what the 5 whys try to do. Please don't ask 5 reallys. That's a little bit excessive. But the point is, what's the real challenge? Every once in a while, we want to drill below the surface. Wonderful question for that. Anywhere. What do you want? Opening moves, end game, middle game if you want. What do you really want? You can extend some of these. What are you hoping for? Would be a variation of that. Very simple variations. How can I help? I think opening moves, middle game, end game. How can I help you? Without taking ownership of the outcomes. Everyone, you know, so agile coaching is not owning. Who owns the outcome? Anyone? Who owns the outcome? The client,
The
Bob.
client.
The
Sorry.
client. Who really owns the outcome? The client. Who really owns the outcome? Exactly. The client owns it. Now, can we partner with them? I'd say yes, lightly. Can we co-create something with them? Can we partner with them? Particularly as an advisor or as a mentor, depending on stances, there could be some partnership, but make sure you don't. So if you're saying, I love this question, this is a beautiful question. If you're saying yes to this, what are you saying no to? Prioritization, valuation. And then what was most useful to you? End game. A wonderful way to wrap up your coaching. What was most useful to you? A variation is what can I do to improve? Again, as a coach. So I thought I'd give you those questions. And then part of it is listening. So you have questions, and then we need to be powerfully listening. And they go hand in hand. And I'm not going to go through that slide with you. So what I want to do is I want you to game plan your arc. I want you to just grab a piece of paper, virtual or physical, and I'm going to give you 2 scenarios and we're going to talk about it. And we'll talk about what your game as a coach. You're going to be coaching in 2 situations. They're not this slide, they're coming up. So we're not going into breakout rooms because we're almost out of time, but we're just going to talk about the arc. So here's the first scenario. It's titled, There is an I in Team. You're the Scrum Master of a team that has recently adopted Scrum. One team member, the team lead, is really struggling to work within the dynamics of a cross-functional team. Because they know everything, they are negative, belligerent in meetings, don't like to collaborate with others, and are increasingly disruptive. Because they know everything, and it really feels like they're slowing down. Another team member has pulled you aside, literally begging you to do something because they're almost in tears because it's like they feel like they're not part of the team. The team lead is controlling everything. Every story point, every backlog refinement, every estimate, it's always there. There's no team. There's an I in team. What to do, what conversations to have. So I want you are all the Scrum Master, and I want you to plan like a little arc on paper. How are you going to enter the conversation? What might the middle game? What kind of stances are you going to use? And how are you going to close it? Just jot it down and we'll review. Just some ideas. So opening moves, middle game, end game, stances, conversations, approaches, what to do, what not to do. I am going to grade the arcs, so everyone needs to write down an arc. I'm just kidding. I'll dive in. Keep scribbling, keep thinking. Anyone have any comments? How about opening moves? What would be some good opening moves? Someone give me an opening move.
Can you please tell me more? Can you please tell me like the specifics? Basically tell your story. What does it feel like for you?
Okay, so very, Aliona, a very open-ended. I love that. So it's not very judgmental. Everyone with me? An opening move, which is sort of curiosity, activating curiosity. I might even be snarky or sarcastic. What is it? I'm just kidding, but I'm channeling Artem. What does it feel like to be the god of the team? Right? How does it feel to have all of the power? Now I'd have to smile, Aliona, right? I'd have to, but to see how they're feeling, that's a wonderful opening move. Anyone else have a different opening move? How about middle game, end game? The team is in pain, everyone. As a coach, what would be your goal?
Next, I would have probably asked what do they see as an options to try to resolve the situation? It's like, what did they have in mind that can be applied other than just, someone else coming and doing something? So what would they have done?
So to me, Aliona, that sounds like middle game. I'm not and that sounds like that's actually a longer section. It's like options. And if we can tease options from them, what are ideas? Like an opening move might be, I know you and I have talked about this a lot, and you're really controlling the team, right? And it's really having a detrimental effect on the team. And that's my observation. So what I'm doing is more advising. I'm not in coaching stance. I'm actually in judgment stance or advising stance. You with me? And that might be an opening move. Now the middle game, if I open that way, Aliona, the middle game might be, could you help me with some options for improving the collaboration in the team? And then just letting it land there, which is sort of what you were talking about. Anyone else have anything in the arc? Anything else in this coaching conversation? Do's and don'ts. Come on, I want to hear some voices.
It sounds like the same. In terms of you'll be in consulting stance, you might create some kind of mind map with some kind of outcomes that might be or might not, in case if they will not be like collaborative, negative and offensive. And you basically can see where they will be in terms of people management, if they will be isolated from other teams.
So I love what you said, Sergey, from the point of view of maybe facilitation and shared. When you were talking about mind mapping, I was envisioning side to side, even virtually, and working at a whiteboard. And can we mind map some options or something? That can be very effective. As a coach, if we go face to face, very often we're adversarial. But if we put a problem, if we pivot shoulder to shoulder and we put the problem in front of us, Sergey, you know what I mean? And we're solving it together, that can be an incredibly effective variation of a stance, if you will. Artem, what do you got?
Yeah, I was thinking that we were talking about what to do, and I can give example what not to do.
I like what not to do. Go for it.
Yes, thank you. So not to take this part of private conversation from another team member and not go directly to the team lead and say like, I've heard from someone from the team that sometimes they're unhappy with your behavior and it doesn't support them. Because I've been there. I've been asking our agile coach once to help somehow to figure out the solution, and in 15 minutes I've received an invite for meeting room for like mediation of conflict event, and I wasn't asking for. And it's what you shouldn't do, and what you maybe should do instead, first to turn off your judgmental stance and believe, how you name it, like believe in best ever intentions. Yeah, positive intent. Because maybe this team lead have some positive intent, and as an opening moves, you can ask some open-ended question towards this team member, like, have you ever think about the intentions of such a behavior of this team lead? Have you talked directly? And what was the answer? What you've tried already? How can I help you, maybe as a middle game? What the ideal outcome of this coaching dialogue would be for you? So some kind of contracting with the person, and what should I do, and what you are not expecting me to do also. So about, maybe it's still opening, yeah, about contracting, and then we can talk about the direction, the goal, the purpose, and about the options, how we can achieve it together. So
I love that. I was a leader at a company, and I was doing a one-on-one coaching conversation with an employee that reported to me. And so it was a coaching conversation, but there was a power structure part of it. But I went in very softly, and Pat was one of our senior QA architects. And she was, the problem was she was being invited to meetings with developers, but she was multitasking, and it appeared that she wasn't paying attention. And she was offending the developers, like, why is she here? She's not, we invited QA to the table, and you're not respecting us. And I went in and I observed this behavior myself. And so I saw this, and I was concerned about it. And I had the conversation with Pat. Luckily, I went in very softly. And so it's not even judgment. I assumed that she may not be self-aware of the behavior. And so I went in very softly, checking what was her intentions in the meeting, sort of what Artem is saying. And what I discovered is she was not self-aware of her behavior. Now, part of me in my head said, how the heck could you not be self-aware that you're ignoring everyone in a meeting? How does that happen? But from Pat's point of view, she wasn't faking it. She didn't know. If I would have come in with judgment, I would have lost her. Does that make sense to everyone? She was a consummate professional. So very often opening moves, you want to be soft to start. So no one asked it, but is this the first coaching conversation versus the fourth? With this situation right here, if it's the first one, you probably want to go in very soft. But Sergey, what if it's the fourth time that you've had this conversation? Does that affect the arc? Anyone? I would say yes, right? Maybe I could talk about outcomes, agreements. What are you trying to do? So think of the arcs as connecting. First coaching conversation, there might be a second one. The other thing that Artem said is this situation could instigate at least two coaching conversations. One with the lead and one with the person who's really struggling. I could have two separate coaching conversations with them. Very different. Very different. All right, I want to quickly go to another one, and there's only one more. I need to watch the time. So there's this one.
Grace, sorry, do you want to say something, or can I mute you? Because we are hearing some background noise. Thank you.
So I'm going to quickly read it for everyone, and then we'll just dive in. You've noticed that this is a team member. So you've noticed that many of your fellow team members have dropped pair programming, TDD practices, in full support of the definition of done. Primary reason seems to be that they generally lack impact, and frankly, they don't see the value to it. So I see the value to these practices, and the team is losing that mojo around that. They're promising to pick them up when there's more time. Is this a great form of inspect, adapt, or something else? What to do? What conversations to have? So think arc. What would be some arcs here? Just think for a few seconds. What would be a good way to enter? Opening moves, middle game, end game. Is it the whole team? Do we sit down with individuals? Another option would be to totally ignore it.
It shouldn't be the whole team, because not
I
all
I would buy that. Well, Sergey, I agree, but there might be an opportunity in a retrospective to have a quasi coaching conversation. It depends, but I agree with you. It's probably a group approach is probably not right. all I'm bringing up is the retro might be a way to have a courageous group-based coaching conversation.
It depends
Mike.
on timing. If you want to solve it like as soon as possible and you're somewhere in the beginning, it's not a retro case. In case if you need to have an immediate reaction here. But definitely it will be retrospective. But in this case, teammates will raise the concern not to do finger pointing. For sure, you'll work with group of teammates, maybe some kind of mentoring. And leading by example, I would say. Also because we need to highlight and show the value, lack of, I don't know, bad code, bugs, etc.
So I heard two things there. There's a coaching conversation, maybe even, like you said, leading by example. So from a stance perspective and mentoring, very powerful one-on-ones. Maybe even starting, Sergey, with leading by example and seeing how that lands, like visual, transparent example. If you haven't been, maybe you've been quietly doing things, whatever that means, and maybe you try to make them more visible. But I love what you said. Any other reactions to this one?
I would actually have combined. Well, I had a similar case before and I have combined. So first having one-on-ones with the team members. So, yeah, leading with all that. Because when you talk to the people and you ask them, why do you think that happens? They say, oh, because, well, nobody follows it, so why should I?
Yeah. So maybe talk about it then. It could go back to team agreements. Have you established team agreements or not, right?
Yeah, exactly. This is what we went for. So we talked and I promised to help. When I asked how can I help, I was asked for the support in bringing this topic and seeing it through at the retrospective. So all in all, it was almost identical with all the team members. First you talk to the team members individually, then you bring it up in the retrospective, and this is where people have already sort of prepared some ideas and options on how to make sure that team agreements are actually followed through.
I love, so again, a lot of these things are not, sometimes people think a coaching conversation is like once and done. That's not my experience. There's a series, there may be parallel activities. Maybe it's not the Scrum Master. Like in this case, as a Scrum Master, I can also, sort of influence or encourage the team to do one-on-one conversations amongst themselves, like Sergey was talking about. Maybe it's me as a Scrum Master encouraging mentoring across the team or empowering the team to coach themselves. To me, this is a team. So to me, this is a team. Members have a coaching responsibility to the degree that they're comfortable with it, encouraging them, inviting them to coach each other. This is a team-to-team member scenario, if you will, or it could be, right? That could be part of the solution for it. Any other reactions before we close? We're like a minute away from close. Let's just close.
I believe that there are not enough data to choose the stance, because there is a note like they have dropped pair programming practices and full support of definition done, meaning that they were supporting it before. So we don't have the full context. And as for me, as this developer, am I new to the team, or I've been working with them for years? So this relationship part is also have some meaning, the level of trust we have right now. Or maybe it's about the deadlines, about the important release. And so
I think in any of these things, so the initial coaching conversation, if you look at it as a bouncing ball, everyone with me?
Yeah.
The initial arc should be focused on context awareness. Everyone with me? Like sensing. So remember I said sense and respond? I think in that first coaching arc, it's probably 90% sense and 10% response.
Yeah.
And then navigate your way through the journey. And that could be multiple coaching conversations.
Yeah, but what Artem was saying, in case, if I understood it right, in case of the developer, it could be even attrition case. I don't like the team. I don't know what they're doing, how they're following like working agreements. I want to leave this program.
And not only, also like, for me, it's Artur mentioned today like basic stuff. So I believe that the basic stuff is something like situational leadership, for example. Yes, this Hersey Blanchard model. So you need to know these basics as a senior developer. at least, so you know how to build relationship and collaboration with people around, and then you can sense and react, and maybe
Yep.
it will be more leading stance, like, okay, I'll show you the way, you can do whatever you want, I will show you for some weeks, and then I will ask, why are you not following? Or it will be more mentorship, guided learning, yes, in new version. I really like this term. Or it will be just coaching, and it could be like a group coaching, team coaching, the same as individual coaching.
Absolutely. So everyone, so let's wrap it up this way. Sense and respond, situational coaching, situational leadership, the picking stances. There is no recipe, right? That's why coaching is hard. There's no right or wrong. What I'm trying to inspire here, though, is to me, there's a problem here. And as a coach, I need to do something about. I can't sit back and watch this, right? Both of these things, I can't just sit back. So I've seen coaches that ask a lot of questions and take no other action, or they pray and hope that God will intervene in an intervention or something. So there's sometimes we need to step out and maybe apply some courage. So what if the team has jettisoned all of their technical practices, and after 15 coaching sessions, they're still not adopting them? Do you have and there's no right or wrong answer, but Sergey, do you have a problem or not? Is it tolerable or not? Is it supporting the goals of the organization or not? Maybe as a coach, you have to step into leadership stance. Everyone with me? And maybe provide a harder stance to the team and say, look, this is something that we don't want to drop, and this is why. I'm not telling you to do that, but there's a journey here that's being guided. And how are you as a coach going to step up in all of this situationalness? So with that being said, and I went over time, thanks. And all the wrap up is, please aspire to become maybe a badass, or if you don't like that term, become well-rounded. So tongue in cheek. And that was it. I hope this was useful. Done.
I can do only this. Yes.
Done. We're done.
A lot. Thanks a lot, Bob, for being with us. It was awesome. And you've said at the beginning, like, I'm unsure that after this introduction, this topic is still important. Believe me, even for us being here in Ukraine, we are looking for some, periods of normal life. And it was an awesome 90 minutes, which was like one moment. And we can forget about the planes, tanks, at least for this 90 minutes. So it was highly appreciated, and all your contributions. Thank you so much. And
my pleasure.
This country will be always ready to, how to say, to invite you as a guest and show you our hospitality, and believe when it will be safer here. It's worth to try Ukrainian hospitality. It's well known superpower of people here.
There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it, guys.
Yeah. Now I will turn off the